Hi, it's Lee from colouringqueen.net, and today I'm colouring my April mandala. Now, I know I'm running a little bit late, but it's nearly mid May, and here I am late again. So, the April mandala you can get for free from my coffee shop. The link is below in the description box. I'm using my Prismacolor pencils on Nina cardstock. Now, all the links are below the video. Now, I'm just going to colour a segment at a time and then colour the other segments offline, as it would be really boring for you to see me colour the same thing over and over again, because that's the nature of mandala. It's basically the same thing, like 6 or 8 times or 4 times, depending on how small it is. And if you like floral mandalas, I've actually put one in the coffee shop last week, I think it was, that you can also download for free. There's another one there as well, and they come with inspirational coloured images that I digitally coloured. So if you need some inspiration for your colour palettes. Now, I hope that you have been having a good week so far. I've been pretty busy tackling the weeds in the garden that I've sort of allowed to build up. It's autumn here and it's fast approaching winter, although where I live it's not really that cold. Today I actually had a cardi on, but usually I'm still in a t-shirt as it's subtropical weather. But anyway, as it's autumn here, I thought I would go with an autumn or fall type of colour palette, a bit muted, and it's basically based on one of the colour palettes that I included with the April mandala. So it's been a while since I told you a story, so today I thought I'd tell you one about a lawyer. Now, I know many people hate lawyers, but in this story, the lawyer was actually the good guy who managed to cop a lot of hate online. Now, I think if you've been online for any length of time, you'll know that sometimes as keyboard warriors, there's sometimes pretty nasty people online. But anyway, this lawyer, he dealt with things as you would expect a lawyer to do. So Gordon Cheng was the lawyer. Now he's actually a barrister and lawyer. If you prefer the correct jargon, a barrister is someone that appears in court as opposed to a lawyer that may or may not appear in court. So he was practicing in Adelaide, which is the capital of South Australia in Australia. And Gordon is quite the go getter as far as his law career goes. He was first admitted to practice in Australia in 1988 and then admitted in South Australia and various other jurisdictions. Now, just in case you're not aware, completing a law degree in Australia is only the very first step to becoming a lawyer. To be a lawyer, you actually have to be admitted to practice law, which involves some training for a period of time, and often that's supervised as well. So, if you pass that training, you can then apply to be admitted, but you'll only be successful if you satisfy all the requirements, which can actually be quite a lot. Now, not everyone that wants to be a lawyer will actually be a lawyer because of these requirements, and they will end up instead having a nice degree to hang on the wall, but they won't be able to call themselves or practice as a lawyer. Now, when I say that Gordon is a go getter, I mean it with the greatest respect, because being admitted to practice in one jurisdiction is already an achievement. But he actually holds registered lawyer certificates for the UK, Wales, Singapore, Australia, and the states in Australia of South Australia, the territories of the Northern Territory, ACT, and even Tasmania. Now, not many lawyers would ever achieve this in their whole careers, and frankly, it kind of sounds exhausting. As well as that, in his spare time, he is a member of a number of associations, including for notaries, arbitrators, and even legal advisor to the Australian Chinese Medical Association. Now, somehow in this busy schedule, he even finds time to do some pro bono work, which is basically free legal work, and he does that for members of the Chinese community. He goes to their China office every 3 months to do some work as well. So he is a busy bee. And I have to say, his achievements are pretty impressive for a lawyer who usually are doing the long, hard hours already without all of these add ons. And who knows if he's even got time for a personal life. Like, his legal career is pretty full on. Now, the law firm states that they mainly provide legal advice and litigation assistance to large institutions, so the big guns, state owned private enterprises in Australia and also other countries. And their firm is actually one of the first Australian law firms approved by the Ministry of Justice of the People's Republic of China to practice law in China, and there they provide advice to both domestic clients and foreign clients with a full range of legal services, including corporations or company law, commercial consulting, and decades of experience. They also do a spot of immigration as well. So they really are an all in one law firm, as they describe on their own website. Now, as a Chinese lawyer, it was natural for Gordon to have many clients that came from the same community, both within Australia and outside Australia, including Hong Kong and China. And many lawyers, or most lawyers, they tend to get a lot of clients by word of mouth from others who have used their service. And one of the reasons for that is it's been long standing, and it's only been in the last 20 odd years, maybe a bit more, that lawyers were very restricted with their advertising of their legal practice and their law firms. Now, those restrictions have been eased somewhat over the last couple of decades, but they're still not full on as generous in the advertising as other industries are. So word of mouth is generally the best way of getting clients. And that way you get clients that are already familiar from someone else on how the firm runs and what the cost expectations might be and what the type of work that they can do for you at this firm. So some firms I know, they rely solely on word of mouth for their marketing, and they don't advertise at all, ever. And they won't even take anyone if they roll up to the door and say, "Can I have an appointment?" Because all of their work is done on a referral basis. So Gordon's was very much this referral basis, and life seemed to be going really well for Gordon and that small firm that he operated in Adelaide. And by late 2018, though, he noticed something. The ka-ching wasn't happening as much as it had previously. He'd actually noticed a drop in clients. Now, law work sometimes ebbs and flows, but there's usually a reason for it, like depending on the area of law that your practice is in and what the economy is doing and all of those sorts of things. Generally, when the economy is really bad, the law work is really good. But Gordon couldn't figure out why his drop in clients had occurred. But by February 2019, it was apparent that the drop was more than a glitch in a law office. It was more than this ebb and flow that I talk about, but it was massive. Over 80% of his clients had left his practice, just gone, just like that. Now, losing 80% of your clients would be absolutely devastating. And I can't imagine what was going through Gordon's head as he looked at the monthly books trying to figure out what was going on. And if you drop 80% of your business, you've only got 20% left to pay all the ongoing fees. So bank overdrafts, legal software, insurance, workers' comp, superannuation. None of these things stop just because you've taken a dive on your clients. People still need to get paid. And it was in late February that he got a clue as to why this sudden exodus may have come about. A former client, Mr. Fung, told him that while he'd been browsing on the internet, he came across a review of Gordon Cheng's business on Google's website, My Business, where you can see details of a business and leave a review. Now, the review had been left a few months prior in October of 2018. Now, this review was written by a woman who identified herself as Isabel Locke, and it was a 1-star review. You have to leave a star out of 5. Now, the review set out the name of the firm and their address in South Australia. It identified them, and what it said was, "Stay clear of this place. Gordon brings shame to all lawyers and is infamous for his lack of professionalism among the Law Society in Adelaide. He is only concerned about how to get the most of your money by giving you false and misleading advices and convincing you to go to court when it is clear that he doesn't have a case to win." Now, as well as being written in English, Isabel also provided a Chinese version of the review and posted it on that Google review. Now, every other Google review of Mr. Cheng's business gave it 5 stars, so this stood out. Now, the review was hard enough to bear in the sea of 5-star reviews, but it looked to Gordon that he had found the reason for the drop in business. If others had seen that review, they may have been swayed not to use his business, just like his former client. Now, Gordon lodged a complaint with Google on the 12th of March, but the review still stood. But Isabel actually changed her name on it to just Bell. So, searching their law firm records, they looked for Isabel Locke or Bell Locke, and they couldn't find a client of that name at all that had used their business. Now, these allegations in that review are really serious. They're things that no lawyer would want to hear. And in a lot of court jurisdictions or legal jurisdictions within Australia, lawyers have to basically promise that they have a case that they believe is winnable when they file. So saying that you would not have a case to win is really harsh. So anyway, Gordon didn't mess around. He quickly commenced legal proceedings against Isabel or Bell on the 24th of April. Now, Isabel responded by changing her name on the review from Bell to Cindy now. So far it's been Isabel, Bell, and now Cindy. You're not fooling anyone. So meanwhile, the Google review remained up. Gordon Cheng posted the statement of claim and summons that he had filed with the court against Isabel on the platform, the Google review platform, and he again complained to Google on the same day to remove the review. Now, after nearly a week later, it was finally deleted, but that wasn't the end of the reviews. Prior to the original review being deleted, a new negative review had been published on the 20th of April. Now, this time the reviewer was Peter. Now, Gordon knew a Peter Locke, although he hadn't been a client. He'd known him for about 10 years, and he met with him, and Peter confirmed he didn't write the review, but that he was Isabel's father, and it must have been Isabel who was writing the review. Now, the review was short and concise. It just said, "Bad lawyer, not at all reliable." Now, Gordon wanted to resolve the matter, so he met with Peter to discuss the reviews that his daughter Isabel had published. He asked if he could persuade his daughter to remove the review. Now, Gordon was there, and Peter phoned up his daughter Isabel. Now, it didn't go well. It didn't go as planned. Nothing was resolved. The father and daughter ended up having an argument on the phone, and the daughter basically told her father to stay out of it. It still ended didn't end though. May came around and it was time for another review. On the 20th of May, someone that identified themselves as JYL this time wrote, "Poor service." And it seemed Isabel was using another pseudonym. Not to let the matter rest, Gordon and JYL ended up taking to their respective keyboards on the Google review site. Now, obviously, Gordon was hoping to resolve the matter, but it was also important to show the general public that he believed that there was no basis in the reviewer's allegations against the law firm. So Gordon posted on the Google review site to JYL, "Our database shows that you are not and have never been our client, nor have you ever attended our office for consultation of any nature whatsoever. You posted a negative rating with defamatory review against our business willfully and deliberately with malice and with intention to harm our reputation and business. We reserve our rights to pursue you for defamation and loss of business." And it was signed and dated by the law firm. Now, JYL didn't get frightened at all by this. She fired back with, "Poor service, your database is incomplete. I did consult with you." Now, Gordon asked the obvious question: "If you were my client, please give me your full name and the subject matter." But as JYL never responded, there was no way that they could check their records to determine even if the reviewer had ever been a client. In the meantime, Google were able to provide Gordon Cheng with the data as to how many people had read that page and had viewed the post. And in April of 2019, 887 people had read the post, and in May of 2019, 727 people had viewed the post. So just in those 2 months, over 1,500 people. Meanwhile, with the downturn in business, the firm had to make some harsh decisions and staff had to be retrenched. There just wasn't enough work. In the olden days, if someone was unhappy with you, a letter would be written and it would be written directly to the business. And it was a private affair. Nowadays, though, everything is online and many people often don't leave reviews. There are some that love to leave reviews, whether they're positive or negative. But the problem with a negative review is once it is published and available to be seen online by anyone searching, is that content in it could well be defamatory. Now, defamation in Australia has three main components that need to be satisfied. Now, in very simple terms, it has to be published to more than one person other than the person that is being defamed. Now, in the old days, the letter direct to the person wouldn't satisfy this publication requirement if it was direct to that person. It also needs to identify the person, whether by name or their business. Now, there have been cases where identifying a person relied on a person's physical characteristics. In that case, even though the person wasn't named, a picture of them showing their distinctive ears was enough for them to be identified, and the review has to be considered defamatory to the ordinary reasonable person if it is likely to damage the person's professional reputation. Now, this can often be quite easy to establish due to the actual nature of the content that was posted. So now, of course, it's not a one-way street, and it would be unfair if it was. So there are defences. The first one is, of course, the truth. If the content is substantially true in Australia, that's a complete defence. The second defence is honest opinion. Although it sounds a bit like the truth, it is more wishy-washy. The review writer basically has to have held an honest opinion that is also based on the truth and that is also a complete defence, whether or not their opinion is correct or not. Gordon's accountant went through the books trying to ascertain what the loss of business as a result of the review was in dollars, in a monetary amount. Now, Karen Fu was the accountant, and she estimated his total loss of income to be $631,229 from November of 2018. Remember that review was initially posted in October, the month prior, to January of 2020. So continuing on. The effect of the negative review on a business, though, not only affects the income, both past and future, but also the goodwill of the business, the value of the business. If it was to be sold, it suffers as well due to primarily the hit on the income and the reputation of the firm. Now, there are fancy calculators and valuation rules for legal businesses, and Karen Fu estimated using those fancy pants gadgets that this loss would be in the region of $296,146. So Gordon proceeded to sue Isabel Locke for these amounts, as well as general and aggravated damages. Of course, it didn't go that smoothly. Before a matter gets to court, the documents that are filed in court must be served on the person you are suing, and in this case, Gordon was suing Isabel. I mean, it's fair enough because people need to know that they're being sued so they can raise a defence if they want to, or a cross claim if they want to. If they don't know they're being sued, it would be very difficult to do that. But Isabel was really adept at avoiding service, which means that not only can the matter not proceed to court, but a lot of time and energy needs to be spent trying to serve the documents. Without service, you're in limbo and no future dates for court appearances can be arranged. It's tedious and it's expensive to constantly arrange for people to serve the documents only to come back, empty handed. Now, thankfully, the courts are onto this gig. And there are rules in place for what is called substituted service, meaning you can serve the person in a different way other than personally if a few conditions have been met. Now, there have been cases before where people were even served on Facebook, for example. Now, I don't know how Isabel was ultimately served, but I do know that it was by substituted service. Now, as well as the financial loss, Gordon also claimed that he'd suffered significant distress as a result of this review. He suffered from anxiety. He felt like every time he turned on the computer, that feeling you get sometimes, when you're at work, and I don't know, I used to often get that feeling of dread when you turn on, and his feeling of dread was worried that there would be more reviews from Isabel Locke on Google Reviews. And I can see how you would feel this. I remember when I worked in a corporate environment, and sometimes you just dreaded turning on the email to see what nastiness was going to hit your inbox that day, and just absolutely dreading it. But he was well aware that, there could be more reviews. I mean, there had already been several. As well as those financial losses that he was complaining of, he was also suing for that distress and that anxiety. He'd actually taken to antidepressant medication and been diagnosed with depression. Now, ultimately, the matter went to court, but Isabel didn't bring a defence. She didn't even appear to argue. And in her absence, the court decided the matter based on the evidence that Gordon had presented, being that he'd never met Miss Locke, he'd never acted for her, and as a result, there could be no question that she was not acting in good faith, meaning she's posted these things without any basis or reasoning. Now, Justice Katrina Bochner has stated that this is a case where aggravated damages are warranted. They're damages for basically punishing you for being bad. The plaintiff, she said, had never met or had any dealings, personal or business, with the defendant. And her response to these notices about court, about being sued, was just to change her name on the review. And then after the review was deleted, she posted another defamatory review. The judge also alluded to the fact that she evaded service, she increased the cost and time required to bring the matter to a court, and not only that, she never apologised or made any offer of compensation to Gordon Chang. Justice Bochner continued to say that I have no doubt that as a result of her actions or inactions, she increased the harm to the plaintiff. So ultimately, the court awarded $100,000 aggravated damages there for the punishment, $300,000 for economic loss, an extra $100,000 for future economic loss, like money that you would have made in the future, but for this, and a loss of goodwill, the value on the business at $150,000, and also some just general damage loss of $100,000. So all up, Isabel was ordered to pay $750,000 plus Gordon Chang's legal costs. Now, I don't know whether Isabel Locke has paid that amount or not. Unfortunately, we never get to find out these things, but that was what the judgment was against her. So a lot of money for leaving a review that the court found wasn't accurate, and they found it to be malicious. So I don't know if any of you are keyboard warriors out there, but definitely not worth it, in my opinion, to take to the old keyboards, when you're feeling like you want to slam someone, unless you've got some real reasoning for it. You better be careful what you write down, always. But so it's an interesting case, and what's really interesting about it is that, in the olden days, these things were just so private. But now, with the nature of social media, I'm sure if you've been on Facebook for 5 seconds, you'll often see these very vitriolic posts by people where they say all sorts of things. You might have been on the receiving end. Make sure you take a screenshot of that, because times have changed and social media has changed so many things. And you might think that you're protected because you just put like your name Belle up there. But Google knows who you are. Courts can subpoena things. Often you can find out who people are, whatnot, just by the content or the IP address or things like that. So don't think that you are completely hidden when you are writing things online. And I don't know why Isabel didn't bother to defend it. I don't know if she's paid any money. Actions have consequences, I guess, is the learning from that one. I went in hard with the black and Prussian green around the middle of the mandala. I actually finished that up offline and didn't show you, so I just used black, 50% warm grey and Prussian green on that in the middle. Now, the reason I did it offline was Buddy has been pulling on the lead again, and he's damaged my wrist, so I've got it bandaged up now, so that's why I did that offline. But anyway, hopefully my wrist will be better next week, and I'm looking forward to colouring something from Lana Green's new book. That's my hope. I'm a bit scared to touch it because it is that beautiful. If you haven't seen the review, I'll put a link to it below this video. It is a stunner. I am so glad that I asked David to get it for me for my birthday, but it is absolutely beautiful. Put it on the wish list, but there are so many fantastic books coming out this year. I think I'll have to win lotto so I can get one of each of them. Anyway, That's it from me. Until next time, stay safe and happy colouring.